everything. Our relationships, our jobs, what constitutes an office, and who we are. In a world filled with chaos, confusion, and uncertainty, it's time for some clarity. It's time to start understanding one another. It's time to start understanding ourselves. We envision a world where everyone knows their why. But even more, we envision a world where everyone knows their WHY.os. Their why, their how, and their what. The operating system that drives you, that lets the world know where you stand, what your unique gift is, and most importantly, who you are. WHY.os. Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to Why Not Wednesday. This is June 8th and we're talking to Sha Sparks today. Sha Sparks and I connected a couple of weeks ago, and she's such an amazing and interesting individual that I had to share her with Why Nation. So welcome to the show, Sha Sparks. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to share you, like I said, with Why Nation. So you're the Chief Excitement Officer of Sparks of Fire International. You host a podcast called The Power of Investing in People, which, by the way, I think I'm going to be on in August, so I'm excited
Yes.
about that. You're the author of a book called How to Get Your Voice Back. The other cool thing about you is you're a certified fearless living coach and trainer, and then you're the co-founder of the Fire Starters Book Project. Did I get all that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
that is a lot. So let's start with, the obvious one is Chief Excitement Officer.
Hmm.
So why not the boring old Chief Executive Officer?
Well, it's funny because it kind of plays into what my why is, right? So I am not officey,
Yeah,
is how I look at it. The word chief executive is just such a word that is kind of icky to me to describe myself. I think it's great for other people if that fits their personality, but it didn't really fit mine. So it was kind of like it put me in a box being an
yeah.
office word, and that is not who I am. So I decided I needed to spice it up a little bit. And for most of my life, I
Mhm.
realized I was waiting to die. So I started to peel away the layers of the onion that I am, that we all are,
Right,
and started to heal and went, God, what am I talking about? Waiting to die. I am so on fire for life.
right.
And so, yeah, I'm the chief excitement officer or chief fired up officer.
Love it. Hey,
Yeah.
so we're getting a couple of questions because one of the things I always do at the beginning is talk about your YOS. And
Yeah.
so I did your introduction, but so let's get started with your YOS so that everybody knows who we're talking to. Because a lot of the people that watch are either our coaches or they're people that are familiar. They have had their YOS done for them by one of our coaches, or they went on our site and did it. So your YOS is to challenge the status quo by finding better ways and ultimately contributing to the success of others. So we've got your why of challenge, your how of better way, and a what of contribute. So
Mm.
let's start with that. How does that resonate with Shay?
Well, obviously, as you can tell with the chief excitement officer, the
Yeah.
challenge is always there. You call it status quo. I call it comfort zone.
Hmm.
And I've been a practitioner, is how I call it, a practitioner stepping out of my comfort zone during this whole healing journey process, and
Right.
really just stepping into what's new and different.
Hmm.
And then I love to meet different people and have great conversations, as do you. And so you never know who you're going to meet, and
Right.
then find out how I can best serve them. And it always seems like, well, they might be, especially in my podcast, they'll be telling me a story, and might be giving me advice or something. And I'm like, so what I'm hearing is ... and it's a simple sentence rather than, a big long way. And it's not that I'm doing it on purpose
Right.
to simplify what they just said, but it's more for me to
Right.
understand it. Yeah.
So it's a better way, right?
Yeah. Which is so funny because I didn't realize that's what I was doing until I took your
The
discovery.
discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I helped you there, but you were gonna say it right.
Yeah.
I always want to help people say it right, and you had it. So you took the discovery. We went through your YOS, and I happened to get a chance to get interviewed by you, so I'm excited about that. But let's answer some questions. So Watson Jordan, so he sparks a fire. He says, "Do you burn books?" I'll let you answer that one because I'm sure we know what the answer is. But let's have some fun with it.
um I only light them on fire when I'm writing them. I don't actually burn them though.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of books, and Kurt Van Onen, who's going to be on our show here soon, says, "Great to see you," and an excitement officer. So people, when we had a conversation this week at Y Institute about who it is that we want to target, who is our ideal client, and when we look at where we are as a company, where we're ramping up, right, and when we look at the law of diffusion of innovation, those first 3.5% or 2.5% are your innovators. Right, the people that like to do things better, the people that are willing to be the rebels and challenge the status quo and do it differently, and those heroes, those contributors that like want to be part of a movement. So really, you fit that to a T because you're challenged, right? So you're
Hmm.
you're that person that's a rebel. You're a better way person. So you're an innovator and you're a contributor. So how about the contribute side of it? How does that feel to you? Making a difference, making a positive impact in the lives of others, because I know that one of the people that you serve are veterans. So
Yeah.
tell us about why do you serve veterans?
Yeah. Great question. So I, as a coach, had started out in my career thought I was helping only women who had been in abusive relationships and
Mhm.
helping them really get their voice back in that. And so I said that I transformed trauma into treasure.
Oh,
And at a podcast conference, I had met, 300 people. And on the last day, I met a gentleman who was asking me about my coaching business. He said, "Tell me what you do." And I said, "I transform trauma into treasure." And he's like, "Wow, have you considered working with veterans?" And I said, "Well, that's funny that you should mention that. I keep meeting them at networking events everywhere I go."
right.
And he said, "Well, I'm also a veteran and I work with Bunker Labs." And I was like, "You're kidding me. I've been waiting for Bunker Labs to launch in my city, in Kansas City, for the past 5 years." And he's like, "Well, they're just getting ready to launch. So let me connect you with the city leader for Kansas City."
Mhm.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
I love that. One thing you just shared, the way just the conversation that you had with this gentleman from Bunker Labs is this is your banner on LinkedIn, fearless communicator.
Yeah.
You just you didn't wait. You just went and said hello. Hey, this is you started having this conversation, and then you communicated your need, and your need got met. Right, because now
Yeah.
you're connected to the person in Kansas City who you needed to talk to. You're not in Kansas City anymore, but you got in touch with the Bunker Labs point of contact
Mhm.
through this person. What does fearless communicator mean?
Mm. So fearless communicator is actually having the ability to be intentional
Mhm.
with the communication rather than just letting words fly out of your mouth. You kinda
Mhm.
give them a thought before you answer. Now, do I still fly off the mouth? Absolutely. There are
Yes.
times where I don't have a filter, but as a leader, and
Mhm.
when we really focus on having intentional conversations and intentional communication with our team,
Right.
it makes a huge difference because it comes from a different place. It comes from a place of how we're choosing to show up rather than
Mhm.
putting expectations on the team.
Mhm. So how does that work with your team?
Right. So let's, excuse me, let's take an example,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to make something up here. Let's take an example where the leader says, "Okay, this is the deadline, and this is when the project is due," and then leaves a whole lot of information out.
Yeah.
And the team starts to assume and fill in the blanks rather than ask questions, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And part of it could be they don't ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look weak. They don't want to look like they're not good enough for their job. They don't want to, they don't want to look bad, right?
Right.
So
Right.
there's some fear on their part. So as leaders, we can kind of minimize the fear of our team by really setting in an intention of, how you want to show up when you are presenting. So you can say, this is when the deadline is, who has the first question?
Yes.
And then it becomes more of a dialogue and things start to get talked about rather than just an assignment, so to
Right.
speak.
Well, so I love what you said. You said a dialogue. So it's part of fearless communicating, a dialogue versus a monologue versus
Yes.
just here's the mission, here's everything I expect you to do, here's when I expect it to be done. At Y Institute, we have a team too. And what we talk about is there's a principle that we abide by. It's called just ask.
Yes.
If you have a question, if you're starting to make up a story in your mind about
Mhm.
what did Shay mean by that? Let me think about it. Oh, I think what she means is she doesn't think I'm capable of doing it. Well,
Mm.
no, let me just pick up the phone. Hey Shay, when you gave me that very specific instruction, can you tell me why you did that? Is there something that you wanted to convey that you thought maybe I needed to hear? But let's just ask the question, because you might just say, "Oh, I saw your face and I thought you were confused. So I wanted to make sure I was very specific." And you're like, "Oh, I was confused about something I read somewhere else," right? As I was listening to you. So what a great, I love that culture there that you're talking about. So tell me about the Fire Starters book project. What is that? What is that all about? And Watson, no, it's not about burning books.
Yes, yes, yeah. It is definitely not about burning books. It is about, it all came out of the pandemic.
Mhm.
So during the shutdown, I'm used to going to network events on a weekly basis. And now here we are, nothing, right? It can't even be quote unquote allowed out of our houses. And so
Right.
I thought, what if we bring like minded people who really talk about contribute? They really are the change that they want to see in the world.
Mm,
And what if we brought them together inside a book in order to not just network with each other, but also network with each other's audiences?
right.
And so the way that we have structured the book is that each author has their own chapter, and then they have a place for their headshot and their bio, and then we also have the copies as well, so
Right.
the ebooks as well, so they can click on the actual links and go and connect with them. But it was really about bringing people together to create a bigger fire, because when we are at a single match, then it's lit, it fizzles out quickly. But when we bring all the matches together, it builds a stronger fire. And then it spreads like a wildfire. And no offense to the people in California who get
Right.
wildfires, but it's really about spreading the movement. It's about
Mhm.
contributing. It's about connecting and being able to go, hey, can I be on your podcast, or how can I serve you? And and it's kind of like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We connected on LinkedIn. You said, hey, I want you to hear about what the Y Institute is. And then we talked and you were on my podcast. And now here I am today. So
Yeah.
it's just literally that. That's kind of what it is. So for me, that's the movement, is the fire starter movement.
So what's the process? What's next for the Fire Starters book project?
Yeah, so we are actually taking co-author applications, and I say applications, really it's an interview on
Right.
why would you want to be a part of this? What's your idea for the chapter? So we have
Mhm.
a theme. So the first book came out is called How to Be a Spark of Hope in the Midst of Change. And people shared their stories of overcoming their obstacles and how fear showed up, how what did they learn about themselves, and shared their story. So the
Excellent.
next collection that comes out, and we have 15 titles for collections, but we're doing
Mhm.
them one at a time. So the next one that's coming out is called How to Be Fearless in Pursuit of What Sets Your Soul on Fire. Because in the world after the
Yeah.
pandemic, that's kind of what really is happening, right? We're kind of all
Right.
asking ourselves, what's important, or
Yeah.
what is our why?
Yeah. I love that. And so you mentioned that even since you discovered your why, you kind of went back and you
Yeah.
started looking at your life and saying, "Oh my gosh, some of this stuff makes sense." Tell us about some of those moments of clarity that you've had.
Yeah. So I was always the one either in the back of the room or in the front of the room. I was never in the middle of the room. I was either in the back of the room or the front of the room, kind of always asking teachers really random questions.
Mhm.
And then they would get, I think, frustrated on being like, God, why does she have so many stupid questions? And that was my own story, right? A stupid
Right.
question. But then I would go into the principal's office and I'd be like, hey, so have you considered, what if we did this? And he, I know, just had the look on his face like, oh, here she comes again.
Right. Here
And
comes
here,
Shay.
here comes Shay again. And, I've been known to, well, during high school years, I was actually a big partier. I was a teenage alcoholic. So you never knew what I was going to say when I was coming
Yeah.
in there. I could be actually intoxicated, or I could have gotten in trouble, or I could come in there and have a question of, hey, why don't we do this?
Right.
Or why are we doing things this way? And it's funny, I look back and I think my mom used to do that all the time too. So clearly that challenge is hereditary.
It's hereditary. So, and what place did that come from? Because I think a lot of us wonder, okay, when did I start challenging the status quo? When did I realize that, what, being different is how I operate? And then take that to the place where now, I mean, there is no doubt that Shay has no problem being different than everyone else. When did it become a strength for you?
Let's see, what year is it? No. I think it's just really become a strength in the last probably just a few years.
Yeah.
I would just say maybe 5 at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because my own insecurities and fears were showing up for me, that
Yeah.
I knew that I was a leader, but I wasn't willing to step into the role at that moment 5
Yeah.
years ago. And I think it was because I just didn't have enough confidence in myself because of all the stuff that I had endured throughout my lifetime.
Yeah.
And so then what ended up happening is people would start to speak life into me. And I truly believe that when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And when the teacher is ready, or when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
So clearly I was ready to start getting life spoken into me. And what I did was borrow their confidence in me and started to go, okay, I am the leader, because I was always put in that position.
Right.
Naturally, but I
Right.
would always question it, like, why are you putting me in the charge? I'm not
Yeah.
in charge here. But it just naturally would happen. And I would always kind of shy away from that. And so finally I was like, well, what if I embrace this?
Yeah.
What would happen? And I just actually happened to be at another podcast conference just recently in the last couple of weeks. And because I am also a connector, I had so many people coming up to me and was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you again. And then the person I would be with, I would connect them. And then they would say, how do you know that person? It's like, because I'm willing to talk. I'm willing
Because
to
you're a fearless communicator.
Right. I'm willing to say, hey, how are you? What's going on? And really be genuinely interested.
That's awesome. So there's been a few people that have joined us. So Tiffany joined us from Charleston, South Carolina. She joined a little late. And I think I need to connect you with Tiffany because she also does work with veterans. So maybe you guys, and I know Tiffany has a podcast. That's her big initiative right now. So let's make sure we connect you guys. Gary Sanchez says the pink glasses give it away. Love it. There's nothing like the guy that figured out the 9 whys, figuring out, and he's looking at you and saying, you know what, I see challenge. Now he cheated because I know he listened to the introduction, and that's one of the things we've stopped doing. We used to try to guess people's why based on when you saw them, but what we found is if we make that assumption, especially your how could be challenged or your what could be challenged. So the why not necessarily, but for you it's definitely out there. And I want to share this from Bill Summers because he says, as a principal, you are my kind of student. And he's reading The Art of Insubordination right now. Have you read that?
No.
It sounds like
was
that's
totally
a how-to
me.
book for people with the why of challenge, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know that we need to read it, but we probably need to read it so that other people can know, oh, so that's who we are. The other thing that we have heard, Shay, in people that we work with, and when we go through the WHY.os discovery, and I've heard this from a few people, is I now have language to say kind of what I've always known about myself. And you sound like you went through that process over the past 5 years. Does being able to say, look, in everything I do, I believe in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. And you said challenging what did you say? Not
Comfort
the status
zone.
quo, the comfort zone. So
Yeah.
get uncomfortable, right? Be
Yep.
comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
My little 10-year-old who shares your why, ever since she was little, she always there was a quote from a movie that she says, well, why fit in when you were born to stand out?
Yes. Yes. I
Does
love
that
that.
resonate with you?
Yes. She sounds like my spirit animal. Yes.
Yeah. She'll love to hear that. We'll have to play that for her later.
Yes.
So we've talked about your YOS. We've talked about the Fire Starters book, why you work with veterans. Now tell us about you. You have a special reason for wanting to work with veterans, and it comes from your dad, right?
Yes. So about 6 months before my dad passed away, and I didn't know, of course, that that's when it was going to happen.
Right.
But he shared with my brother and I for the first time that he was drafted into Korea, and I
Mhm.
believe the Vietnam War. He never said it was the Vietnam War. And my entire life up until that moment, I thought he had enlisted. I had no idea that he was drafted.
Oh wow.
And so he then tells us the story because he had never talked about it before. And he was sharing with us the story of, that he was just a farm kid, and I use the word in quotations just because
Right.
that's his term, right? He was like, I was just a farm kid, and here I am, now on an army base, find myself on an army base in Korea, and I kind of didn't know what to do. And I asked him a certain question, and I honestly cannot remember what the question
Mhm.
was. I think it had to do something with he loved being, he was also an air traffic controller. And I was like, why
Mhm.
didn't you do air traffic control? And I'm not quite sure, but his answer to the question was, I didn't have a choice.
Mm.
And when he said that phrase, it just permeated my soul. Like, wow, how many times have I said that to myself?
Mhm. Right.
And one of those ways was when I was in an abusive relationship, I thought I don't have a choice. He's going to kill me one day. So I made my bed. I have to lie in it.
Mhm.
And I didn't think I had options. And
Mhm.
so I truly believe that if I had the skills that I have now from coaching and just the emotional intelligence and mind
Yeah.
intelligence and mindfulness to be able to not recreate, but be able to give my dad some skills and tools, he would
Yeah.
have been a different person. I will say that he wasn't a very, very good father, and he wasn't a good husband to my mom
Right.
or my stepmom. However, because I healed and
Mhm.
I changed the way I communicated with him, that fearless communicator,
Yeah.
and just talked to him in a way that he'd never been talked to before and asked him questions he'd never been asked before.
Right.
Like, are you trying to manipulate me? And he didn't even know what that meant. That he started to change. And he
Mhm.
ended up becoming my best friend in the last 5 years of his life.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is so special. Thank you for sharing that. And I can see that in the work that you do to help
Mm.
veterans not think that they have no choice, right? Because
Yes.
if we transition, and if you're looking behind me, you know that I'm a veteran also, as we transition from that world where every day you know your why, right? Your
Mhm.
why is to defend your country and to make the ultimate sacrifice that you raise your right hand for if necessary. And to go from that world to a world where all of a sudden you're just Joe, average Joe on the street. And that literally happens overnight. And I
Yes.
know there are transition programs that the military offers, but not having that clarity of who are you really and what is it that you bring, what's your gift. And I can see how you're helping bring that clarity to the folks that you're working with. I want to acknowledge Kurt because he said something really nice. He said, I love seeing hesitant leaders find
Mm.
their path to success. Thank you, Shay, for stepping into your
Mm.
called leadership role. So Kurt, now you're gonna have to watch Kurt's show. I think he's coming in the next couple of weeks. And Hugh Hornsby, he just joined the Y Society recently. And he says, "Well done, congratulations. They need
Mm.
you."
Thank
And
you.
I will tell you, if there's anything you need, Hugh Hornsby is your guy. He is a networker. He has introduced me to so many people. I love having Hugh as part of the Y Society. So if needed, he's on my LinkedIn, Shay, as you're going. You've got an exciting trip coming up: San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. I think Salt Lake City. What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so I am going on a podcast and book tour.
Yeah,
And so I am recently moved to Florida. So now that I'm no longer in the middle of the country where flights were, no big deal to fly out to one place, a couple of
sure.
hours. Now it's an all day event now that I'm
Mhm.
across the country. So
Right.
I have a coaching retreat at the end of the month in Park City, Utah. And I
Beautiful.
got to thinking like, well, and I'm a huge, like, I love to travel and I love to connect with people that I've met in
Yeah.
online but not met in person. And so I was like, so how far is it to San Francisco? Oh, it's only 10 hours. Okay, well, let's and that's how my brain works. Talk about
Right.
challenging, right? Like totally out
Yeah.
of the box. And I thought, well, I have family there that I need to see, and well, who else do I know? And then who else do I know in California? And who else? And then it was like, oh, I need to go to San Francisco, and then to LA, and then San Diego, and then okay, well, how's the route? What is the route? Oh, I'm going to pass through Vegas. Oh, I've got people in Vegas to see,
Right.
and then Park City, and then now I have an interview, literally my last day in Salt Lake City. So
Excellent.
it's like I'm doing interviews along the way, but then I'm also getting interviewed with other podcasters along the way, and then
Mhm.
speaking about the book as well. So that is my big trip coming up.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, so now that we've been, I think like we've known each other, right? Now we've known each other forever because we've been on each other's shows. And tell me, how has discovering your YOS impacted the way you communicate? You're talking about when you talk about your why, your how, and your what, and the fact that you're our ideal person to be talking to. I love that. But what does that mean?
Well, so for me, I mean, seriously, the just to see it on paper that my I'm a challenge person, and not that I am a challenge, but that I like to
Right.
challenge, right?
Yeah.
I think that was literally the switch in my head of, oh, I'm not a challenge, but I like to challenge.
Right.
And so that's really changed my mindset on the leadership and all the things that I'm doing in my business and coaching, and I also do brainstorming for businesses and things like
Uh-huh.
that. And so just to think about that in such a different way is like, wow, that makes so much sense. So yeah. And then the whole contribute piece, my goal is to give back. My goal is to pay it forward. My goal is to just connect with people and always say, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And it's not always about money. In fact,
Right.
it's probably 90% about not about money and
Right.
10% about money. That's it.
Yeah.
It's about building that friendship and that relationship. So when I go to conferences and people are like, how do you know these people? It's like, because I talk to them
Yeah.
and, maybe help them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I was listening to Michael Jr. He's a comedian that is a part in a video that we use to talk about the importance of why. But he talked about a change that he made in his comedy. He says, "I used to do comedy to get laughs,
Mm,
and I made a mindset change that instead of getting laughs, I'm going to give people the opportunity to laugh." And so
yeah.
he went from getting to giving, and he said it
Yes.
made all the difference in the world. And I
Yes.
think that's what you're talking about. You start with giving,
Yes.
and you get back probably far more than you give in the
Absolutely.
long
Yes.
run. Yeah. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Shay. Is there any closing words that we wanna make sure? Is there anything we forgot to talk about? I know we didn't. We probably have a few minutes. I definitely want to talk about the book, the How to Get Your Voice Back. So that was that your first book?
Yes, that was my first book,
Yeah. Tell
and
me about
it
that.
it was it was based out of well, let me just say this, I'm a very spiritual, prayerful person, and it was
Yeah.
literally a gift from God, is how I see it. I
Excellent.
was supposed to go work on my website,
Mhm.
and the internet was down, and so I couldn't bring up my Google Doc to work on my website. I was at the time just really kind of crafting who I am as a coach for my
Mhm.
website. And so I just opened a Word document and just literally prayed right before, like, okay, God, what do you want me to write? And 6 hours later, I sit back and I was like, I think I have a book. I think I just wrote my first book. Like, this is
Yeah.
not normal. And what's crazy is that I had actually had How to Get Your Voice Back come to me probably 2 years prior when, in my former career, I was a hairstylist and I was at a battered women's shelter, doing hair and doing
Yeah.
makeovers on these women. And, my person who asked me to do this, also asked me to speak and share my story and share where I'm at now. And
Right.
so the next day, as I was replaying like how honored was to be asked to be there,
Right.
I thought the phrase "How to Get Your Voice Back" popped into my head. So after I wrote this book, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this book is a journal prompt book."
Right.
So it's really the 6 steps that really helped me pull my negativity inner thoughts out and look at them and then be able to dissect them and go, "Okay, this is not who I am. This is not who I choose to be."
Right.
And then be able to rewrite it. So that is how to get your voice back.
Love that. And so there's a 6-step process that you go through in the book.
Yes, yes.
There's a good reason for, and where can we find the book? Is it on Amazon? Where do we find the
Yeah,
book?
it's on Amazon, and it is under, I believe, How to Get Your Voice Back, if it's still
Excellent.
there. If it's still there.
Excellent.
It's been a while since it's been there, so yes.
Well, I want to leave with a great little message from Watson in travel and in real life meetings for the win.
Yes.
Congratulations on your upcoming trip. I'm jealous. I think you're going to go right. If you're driving, as you're driving home, you're going to pass right by New Mexico when you're leaving Utah. You're going to have to come south a little. So come by and say hello to us. And thank you so much for being on, Shay. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, to share your message, and to share Sparks on Fire with the rest of the world and with the Y Nation. So have a great rest of your day, and thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.